Max Verstappen's Barcelona radio was not just angry. It was the sound of Red Bull's biggest fear becoming public. Because this was not a rookie complaining about a difficult car. This was a four-time world champion, the driver who carried Red Bull through years of domination, telling his team the same warning again. No grip. No balance. Time vanishing in the corners. And Barcelona is the worst place for that message, because this track does not hide weak cars. It exposes them. The Red Bull is overweight. The rear is unstable. The setup window is too narrow. Ferrari has surged ahead with Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes and McLaren are pulling away. And now Verstappen's own radio is saying what the timing screens have been hinting at all season. Max is not just frustrated. He may no longer trust the car. And if Red Bull cannot fix that fast, Barcelona may not be remembered as another bad qualifying. It may be remembered as the moment their dynasty truly started to break. Subscribe to the channel. The first mistake would be to treat Verstappen's Barcelona radio like a normal complaint. It was not normal. Max Verstappen has complained before. He has been blunt before. He has sounded angry, impatient, and impossible to satisfy before. That is not new. Red Bull knows that side of him better than anyone. But this time, the message carried a different kind of weight. Because Barcelona was not just another circuit. It was the kind of track that tells the truth about a car. If a machine has balance, Barcelona shows it. If a machine protects its tires, Barcelona rewards it. If a driver can trust the rear end through long, loaded corners, Barcelona gives him lap time. But if the car is unstable, heavy, and difficult to place, Barcelona exposes everything. That is why Verstappen's words mattered so much. He was not just saying the car felt bad. He was pointing to the exact weaknesses that have been following Red Bull all season. No grip. No balance. Time lost in the corners. A rear end that does not give him the confidence to attack. And when the same problems appear at a track like Barcelona, Red Bull cannot simply blame the conditions. They cannot say it was just one tire set. They cannot pretend it was only traffic, temperature, or one imperfect setup choice. The problem is deeper. The car is not giving Verstappen the platform he needs. And for Max, that is everything. Because Verstappen does not need a comfortable car. He does not need something soft, gentle, or easy. He has built part of his reputation on driving cars that demand courage. He can handle sharpness. He can handle aggression. He can handle a car that sits close to the edge. But there is a huge difference between a car that is sharp and a car that is unpredictable. A sharp car reacts quickly. An unpredictable car makes the driver hesitate. That hesitation is deadly in qualifying. A driver has to believe before the corner even arrives. He has to trust that when he turns in, the front will bite. He has to trust that when he commits to the throttle, the rear will stay with him. He has to trust that the car will behave the same way from one corner to the next. If that trust is missing, the lap is already damaged. Maybe the loss is tiny in one corner. A fraction of a second. A small delay. A slightly earlier brake. A throttle application that comes one heartbeat late. But Formula One is built from those fractions. One small hesitation becomes two. Two become four. By the end of the lap, the driver is not fighting for pole anymore. He is trying to rescue the damage. That is what Verstappen's radio has been telling Red Bull. He is not just fighting Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. He is fighting the car. And that is the worst possible battle for a champion. Because rivals can be beaten with strategy, pressure, and racecraft. But if the machine underneath you does not respond, every fight begins from behind. This is why Barcelona should worry the entire Red Bull team. The circuit demanded exactly what their car has struggled to provide. Stability, balance, confidence, clean cornering performance. A car that can flow through long sections without forcing the driver to correct, wait, and compromise. Instead, the radio suggested the old problems were still alive. That is the alarm. Not one message. The repetition. Earlier in the season, Verstappen had already described the car as lacking grip and balance. He had already talked about losing serious time in corners. He had already warned that the rear was unstable in high-speed moments. Those comments were not random emotion. They were symptoms. And Barcelona confirmed the symptoms had not disappeared. That is a major problem, because Red Bull has already had time to respond. The team has had data. It has had race weekends. It has had practice sessions, meetings, simulations, updates, and setup experiments. Yet the driver is still sending the same warning. That means the cure is not working fast enough. Or worse, the team has not fully found the cure at all. The reported weight issue makes everything harder. The Red Bull car has been described as 6 to 7 kilograms above the minimum threshold. Outside Formula One, that sounds small. In racing, it is a constant punishment. That extra weight is carried through every braking zone, every acceleration zone, every direction change, every long corner, and every tire stint. It never leaves the car. It never stops costing time. It is believed to cost around 0.2 of a second per lap, and in Formula 1, 0.2 is not a detail. It can be the difference between fighting at the front and being trapped behind the teams you used to beat. But weight alone does not explain the whole crisis. That is what makes this dangerous. The car is not only heavy. It is also difficult to balance. It appears to have a narrow setup window. It struggles with rear stability. It has shown sensitivity over curbs and bumps. And all of those issues connect to each other. Extra weight stresses the tires. Stressed tires lose grip. Less grip makes the rear harder to trust. A nervous rear makes the driver hesitate. Hesitation costs lap time. Lost lap time creates pressure. Pressure makes every radio message sharper. That is the chain reaction Red Bull is living through. And Max Verstappen is the one saying it out loud. That is why his radio is so powerful. It cuts through the polite explanations. It cuts through the carefully managed interviews. It cuts through the kind of language teams use when they want a crisis to sound like a normal development phase. The radio gives you the raw version. The driver feels the car, and the driver reacts. And when the driver is Verstappen, Red Bull has to listen. Because this is not someone who needs perfect conditions to perform. This is a 4-time world champion. This is the driver who turned Red Bull into the sport's dominant force. This is the driver who made difficult Sundays look controlled, who made pressure look normal, who made rivals feel like they were racing against something inevitable. If that driver is repeatedly telling the team that the car has no grip, no balance, and is losing time in the corners, the team cannot treat it like background noise. It is the most important data point they have. And the timing could not be worse. Ferrari has adapted strongly to the new era. Lewis Hamilton's move has given them not only speed, but a huge emotional storyline. Charles Leclerc gives them another weapon. Mercedes has moved ahead. McLaren is dangerous. The front of the field is no longer waiting for Red Bull to recover. That is what changes the mood inside the team. When you are dominant, a problem feels temporary. When you are chasing, a problem feels like a threat. And Red Bull is chasing now. That psychological shift is enormous. For years, Red Bull operated from strength. Other teams were reacting to them. Other teams were copying them. Other teams were wondering how to close the gap. Now Red Bull is the team searching. Searching for balance. Searching for weight reduction. Searching for a wider operating window. Searching for a way to give Verstappen a car that feels alive without feeling unpredictable. And that search is happening in public, because Verstappen's radio keeps revealing the pain. That is why Barcelona may become a turning point. Not because it was the first warning. Because it may be the warning Red Bull can no longer explain away. If the car struggled at a strange street circuit, the team could blame the layout. If the issue appeared in unusual weather, they could blame conditions. If the tires behaved strangely for everyone, they could hide in the chaos. But Barcelona is different. Barcelona is a measuring stick. A car that works well there usually has a strong foundation. A car that struggles there often has a deeper problem. And Verstappen's radio suggested Red Bull's foundation is not where it needs to be. That is the first block of this story. A champion did not just complain. He revealed that the same weakness is still there. And if the same weakness is still there after months of development, then Red Bull's alarm is not dramatic. It is justified. But the next layer is even more worrying, because Verstappen's radio is only the symptom. The real problem is the machine underneath him. And this is where Red Bull's situation becomes dangerous, because the team is not dealing with one clean issue that can be fixed with one clean solution. It is dealing with a car that appears to be fighting itself in several different ways at the same time. That is the worst kind of Formula 1 problem. If the engine is weak, the team knows where to look. If the tires are not warming up, the team knows what direction to study. If the rear wing is too draggy, the team knows what trade-off it has made. But when the driver is complaining about no grip, no balance, rear instability, curb sensitivity, and time loss in the corners, the problem becomes harder to isolate. It becomes a chain. And chains are dangerous because every link pulls on the next. The reported weight issue is the first link. A Red Bull running 6 to 7 kilograms above the minimum is not just slightly heavier. It is carrying a penalty through every part of the lap. Every braking zone becomes harder. Every corner entry becomes more demanding. Every change of direction asks more from the tires. Every acceleration point forces the car to carry mass it does not want. And in a sport where teams spend enormous effort saving tiny amounts of weight, 6 or 7 kilograms is not a detail. It is a constant drag on performance. But weight does not just make the car slower. It changes the feeling of the car. A heavier car can feel less eager to rotate. It can put more stress into the tires. It can make the driver wait longer before the car responds. And if the driver already feels the rear is unstable, that extra mass only makes the problem more painful. This is why Verstappen's complaints connect so clearly. No grip is not separate from the weight. No balance is not separate from the rear instability. The time lost in corners is not separate from the car's narrow setup window. All of it is connected. And for Red Bull, that means the fix is not simple. They cannot just change one setting and expect the old car to return. They need the car to lose weight, behave better, protect its tires, handle curbs more cleanly, and give Verstappen confidence without making the car dull. That is an extremely difficult target. Because Max does not want a slow, safe car. He does not want comfort if comfort costs lap time. He wants a car that is aggressive, direct, and predictable enough that he can attack harder than everyone else. That word matters. Predictable. A car can be difficult and still be predictable. Verstappen can live with that. He has built his greatness on feeling the edge earlier than others and holding the car there longer. But if the car is unpredictable, that changes everything. Then every corner becomes a question. Will the rear hold? Will the grip arrive? Will the car settle over the curb? Will it respond the same way it did on the previous lap? That uncertainty takes away the one thing Verstappen needs most. Instinct. At his best, Max does not look like he is calculating every movement. He looks like he knows. He turns in and the car follows. He picks up throttle and the rear obeys. He senses the limit and lives there. But a nervous car forces calculation back into the lap. It makes the driver think in places where he wants to feel. And in qualifying, thinking too much is slow. That is why Barcelona hurt so much. The circuit asks for trust through long corners where the car stays loaded for several seconds. If the rear is unstable there, the driver feels it for longer. If the balance is wrong there, the lap time does not disappear in one dramatic moment. It drains away slowly, corner after corner, until the gap becomes impossible to recover. That is what Verstappen's radio was warning Red Bull about. The car is not giving him a platform. It is making him work around the weakness. And a driver can only do that for so long. This is where the comparison with Red Bull's past becomes painful. During the dominant years, Verstappen often had a car that matched his demands. It could be sharp, but it had purpose. It allowed him to rotate the car, attack entries, and control exits with extraordinary precision. The team built a machine that amplified him. Now, the car seems to be resisting him. That is a completely different relationship. And when the relationship between Verstappen and the car changes, the entire team feels it. The race engineer hears it first. The garage feels it next. The strategists feel it when qualifying position becomes weaker. The development department feels it when upgrades are judged by whether the radio gets calmer. The leadership feels it when every weekend turns into another public test of whether Red Bull has found the answer. That is why this is not only a technical crisis. It is a confidence crisis. Not Verstappen's confidence in himself. His confidence in the direction of the car. And that is far more dangerous. A driver can stay motivated through a difficult season if he believes the team understands the problem. He can accept short-term pain if the path forward is clear. He can fight through bad weekends if every update makes the car feel closer to what he needs. But if the same issues keep returning, the belief starts to thin. That is when radio messages change. They stop sounding like feedback. They start sounding like warnings. Barcelona felt like one of those warnings. Because Red Bull had already seen these problems earlier in the year. China had already exposed the lack of balance. Canada had already brought more concern. The team already knew Verstappen wanted a deeper look into what was happening. So by the time Barcelona arrived, the question was not, does Red Bull have a problem? The question was, has Red Bull made enough progress? And Verstappen's radio suggested the answer was not the one they needed. That is the frightening part. The team has been working. It has not ignored the issue. It has not accepted being behind. Red Bull is not a passive team. It is aggressive, technical, and proud. It knows how to win. But effort does not guarantee cure. Sometimes a car concept creates problems that cannot be fully removed quickly. Sometimes the first design direction sets limits that later updates can only reduce, not erase. Sometimes the team can make the car better, but not better enough.